Welcome one and all to Horrid Histories,
the history podcast run by kids.
I'm your host, Caitlin.
And I'm Ching Yi.
And today's topic is the Mongolian Empire. The empire of the well-known ruthless tyrant and leader, Genghis Khan.
And joining us today is the one and only class historian, Jordan.
Hello. Thank you for having me here today.
Glad you could join us, Jordan.
Good to be here, Chingy.
So, back to the topic. What do you think about Genghis Khan, Chingy?
Honestly, he's called a ruthless tyrant for a reason. I think he's a horrible person. I mean, he literally killed 40 million people.
True, but he was quite a fair person for that time especially, and he respected women and other cultures. So, I think he's a good person.
No, he isn't. He killed his own brothers for food.
But he made the postal service we know today. He's good.
No, he's bad.
Actually, he's neither.
What?
It depends on your perspective. Truth is that this debate has gone on for many years, and everyone has their own opinion based on their perspective. To prove my point, I have what our fellow students think.
To find out what the students think, come back after this short commercial break.
Lazada 77, here we go!
Lowest price sale. That's Lazada yan. 7 peso deals. That's Lazada yan. Up to 7 times free shipping pa. That's Lazada yan.
Check out na sa July 7 to 11.
Lazada 77, lowest price sale.
The lowest price. That's Lazada yan.
Welcome back to Horrid Histories, the history podcast run by kids.
Right now, we're seeing the perspectives of our fellow students. Oren says, he's a really good leader as he shows the leader attributes. And even though he killed a lot during his time, that was normal in his generation.
Cool. But Tiffany says, he's brutal because he killed 40 million people,
Which was 11% of the world's population at that time.
plus he used some of his people as human shields.
And finally, Ava says, I think that he is a good and bad person because although he has killed many people in his life, he is also a loyal and fierce leader.
So, as you can see, many people have different opinions and perspectives on Genghis Khan.
That's cool and all, but in the end, he still killed more people than Hitler and Stalin have combined. And he almost raped a Chinese princess, so it's still bad in my eyes.
Well, I guess that's just your perspective. Anyway, aside from this little debate, why don't we go on to fun facts?
Fact 1. The Mongolian Empire was the largest connecting empire.
Fact 2. The Mongols had very strange rules with brutal penalties.
Such as paying 9 times the stolen amount, or even death.
And fact 3. The Mongols lived in a gur or yurt.
A portable tent house they used as they were nomadic.
Funnily enough, that's the end of our fun facts for today and our podcast.
Thank you, Jordan, for joining us today.
No problem. It was my pleasure.
And thank you to all listeners of today's podcast, and we'll see you next time on Horrid Histories.
Thank you again for listening to our podcast. Now here are some behind-the-scenes moments from when we were recording.
Okay, cut out's over. Cut out's over. Done.
Mr. Cross is gonna kill us for putting Horrid Histories in there, I swear.
To the broccoli cat. Can we?
No.
Please.
No.
I've already half of the bloopers.
No.
I've had 0, so thank God.
No, I hate the broccoli cat.
Lol.
Mom is screaming at Gian right now.
No. Whatever, 5-minute cut in. My dog's outside scratching.
5 minutes!
More.
That had to go to bloopers.
Wait, we actually need to have a count of how many times Kingy said this is going into bloopers.
Yes.
God.
5-second
That
cut
will go
in.
in bloopers.
Jordan, 5-second cut in. I was supposed to say.
5-second
I was gonna
bloopers.
say button. What the heck?
That had to go to bloopers.
Okay. 5-second cut in.
Hello, my name is Afzan, and in today's podcast, we're going to be talking about the advancements in castles. Let's go back to the 11th century. This is when one of the first motte and bailey castles was built. Motte and bailey castles were the most basic castles you could build. They were made purely of wood. After the Battle of Hastings, many people did not accept William as the king, so William needed to set up castles to control everyone quickly. His best option were the motte and bailey castles. It was a great deal. It was cheap and quick to build. His main defense was a palisade wall. A palisade wall is when many tree trunks are lined up against each other. The motte and bailey castle is made of two parts. There was the keep and the bailey. The keep is where the most important people stayed, like if the king came over. There was also the highest part. It was made on top of a moat. A moat is a man-made hill made to elevate the keep. The bailey was the main part of the castle. It had the stables, weaponry room, diary, and so on. The armies would stay here. The bailey was connected to the keep by a wooden bridge. To connect the bailey to the outside world, there was a drawbridge. The drawbridge would open up across the ditch. The ditch would help protect the castle from enemy invaders on foot. They would fall into the ditch and have to try very hard to climb up. When it was raining, the ditch became a moat and was even harder to cross. There were many disadvantages to motte and bailey castles. Palisade walls were only as high as tree could grow. What I mean by that was that the palisade walls were made of tree trunks, and the highest tree trunk you could find was with the highest tree, meaning the tower wasn't very high because they were only the length of ordinary trees. They were also flammable, meaning any source of fire would destroy the castle. They were also very weak. What I mean by this is many people use axe to chop tree down, especially even to make this castle. Meaning, if somebody used the axe, they would easily be able to chop the palisade wall down. Since the motte and bailey castles had many disadvantages and a few advantages, the stone castle was built. The stone keep castle wasn't very cheap or easy to build, but it was a lot stronger. In this castle there was a keep, like before, with walls and towers going all around. Since the castle is made of stone, the walls can be really high. What I mean by that is before we were limited to the height of trees, but now we can just stack up the stone until we think it's high enough. Since stone isn't flammable or weak like wood, it can't be burnt down or cut down. Since the walls are high, it can't even be climbed over. This was the perfect castle for ages, but after a while weapons and tactics were developed, like when people were digging under the tower's corners to make it fall. To counteract this, the Concentric Castle was made. The Concentric Castle was a castle where everything was round. The towers were round, the walls were circular, even the keep was round. The way this would work is there would be no corner for people to dig under for the whole thing to fall down. It was also stronger because of the circular shape. There were no corners or blind spots for enemies to attack. Thank you for listening to my podcast.
Hello, welcome to our history podcast. We share our thoughts on historical events and give you some interesting facts about those times as well.
Today we have a special guest, Eunice. She will be joining us in this episode while we discuss the succession crisis of 1066, changes in castles over time, Native Americans, the Mongolian Empire, the Black Death, and Mist.
Hello. Let's start with the game, What's the Word? I asked Eunice and Tiffany to think of 3 words that will be relating to our topic today. So, are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Sure. Let's start with our guest Eunice first. What word did you have today?
Harold Godwinson was my first word as it relates to the topic.
Yeah, that's true. He was one of the contenders for the throne when King Edward had died with no hair.
Actually, Harold Godwinson was pretty close to Edward the Confessor, since he's married to Edward's sister.
Yeah.
Even though they don't have the same blood, they're still pretty close.
Yeah. Their family, Harold Godwinson's family, were advisors for King Edward.
Yeah.
They have a close relationship.
Now, Tiffany, what's your word?
I thought of castle when I think of the time 1066 because when William was crowned king, he had to have some sort of defense.
So, how about you, Eunice? What's your second word that you chose relating to the topic of the time of 1066?
The second word I chose was King Edward as he died without a hair.
Yeah, that's true because without him dying with a hair, we probably wouldn't have castles as advanced as today.
We also wouldn't be having Queen Elizabeth as our leader in England, since Queen Elizabeth is related to William.
Yeah.
If Edward the Confessor had an heir, we wouldn't have castles and wouldn't have upgraded them, since William the Duke of Normandy, now William the Conqueror,
We also
wouldn't
have that strong weaponry.
Yep.
Speaking of weaponry, if you were to attack a castle, how would you attack it? Would you lay siege or use or dodge the corners out or use weaponry?
Well, for me, I would just go find lots of people who also want to attack the castle, and I use them as bait, and I sneak around the castle and break in and take whatever I want and sneak out.
How cruel.
I personally would have used the trebuchet, which leads me to my third word, because I think it's really powerful, and it was a weapon that I chose that would be the most effective way of attacking a castle, because it has like a slingshot kind of thing that throws rocks.
Okay.
Alright.
My third word is crown, because they were looking for people who deserved the crown after King Edward's death. Which is like,
Yeah.
Well, at the beginning of history, like around like the first time, and we were discussing about this topic, I already knew that William was going to be the king because I just knew.
Because King Edward asked for him to become the king, or
No, it's just that I just felt it. You know, when we were like splitting into teams of Harald Harada Harold Godwinson and William. I knew for some reason William was going to be the king.
It's fate.
Yeah, it's just senses.
Fate.
Before you guys knew about this topic, who do you think was going to be the king?
William.
I honestly forgot, but like
William, because
I
it's
think I
William.
thought it would be Harold Godwinson.
Because of the name God.
Winston.
No, because he was quite like his ties were like close and stuff with the family, so it was quite his chances seemed very high to become a king.